I never anticipated a simple text message to have such a profound impact on my life. It was Christmas Eve, and like every year before, I was preparing for a quiet holiday alone. My family had stated that the weather was too awful to travel. An ice storm had hit Nashville, and we were all advised to stay at home. It seemed sensible enough. After all, winters here may be harsh. But what I didn't realize was that one text, this harmless communication from my mother, would gradually unravel years of lies and change all I thought I knew about my family. I am Catherine, 32 years old, and I work as an accountant. I've always been the quiet one in the family, preferring work to socializing and quietly watching my younger sister Anna bask in the sunshine of our parents' approval. Anna was the ideal person in their eyes, an adventurous free spirit, a yoga instructor who could do no wrong. Meanwhile, I was the steady one, the one who held everything together but never got any credit for it. That Christmas morning, I made myself some hot chocolate, put on a Christmas movie, and tried to stay optimistic despite my loneliness. At around 3 p.m., I sat down to read through Instagram, expecting to see the usual holiday posts, but what I witnessed almost stopped my heart. There it was, a new post from my cousin. The caption said, "Perfect family Christmas at Anna's. We are really blessed to have everyone together. Family customs include Christmas dinner." The snapshot featured my entire family, including my mother, father, aunts, uncles, cousins, and even my grandmother, gathered around Anna's table, laughing, smiling, and dressed in festive sweaters. It seemed like the perfect holiday event, with everything you could want. But I couldn't overlook the gorgeous skies in the background. There was no ice storm. In truth, the weather in Nashville that day was sunny and pleasant. The ice storm excuse was a falsehood. It had never occurred. My hands began to shake as I browsed through more photos. There was my father, cutting the bird. My mom is arranging her distinctive Christmas cookies. My tiny nieces and nephews are opening presents. Every moment had been a conscious attempt to exclude me, to make me believe that I was the only one left out. I felt ill to my stomach when the truth hit me. How many times did they lie to me? How many personal family events had they covertly staged without informing me, stating everything was canceled or no one could attend? How long had they been working behind my back to create a beautiful family narrative that didn't include me? I sat there, staring at the photographs on my phone, feeling a rush of betrayal wash over me. The worst part was that I believed them. I had created excuses for their behavior, convinced myself that I simply didn't fit in, that I was too unique to genuinely belong. But now I saw the truth. They had been driving me out for years, and I had been too blind to recognize it. The following morning, my phone rang. It was my mom. She sounded as happy as before, as if nothing had changed. "Hello, honey. I hope you had a lovely, quiet Christmas. We missed you." I looked at my phone in surprise. The casual brutality of her comments caused my hands to curl into fists. Everything was about to change at this point, but I had no idea. Growing up, I had always strived to be the ideal daughter. I helped my mother with the chores, got straight A's in school, and even gave up my dream of going to art school to study accounting since my parents said it was more practical. Meanwhile, Anna did anything she desired. When she dropped out of college to become a yoga instructor, my parents dubbed her brave. When I worked extra hours to help them pay off their home, they hardly recognized it. One moment in particular should have opened my eyes, but I chose to disregard it. 3 years ago, when my father underwent surgery, I took 3 weeks off work to care for him. I cooked, cleaned, drove him to appointments, and administered his meds. Anna arrived up once, remained for an hour shooting selfies with him for social media, and then left, stating she was on a yoga retreat. However, in my parents' version of the story, Anna was the one who provided support while I was barely mentioned. At family events, my aunts would compliment Anna on her free spirit, while asking when I would loosen up and enjoy life more. My professional accomplishments were dismissed as boring, whereas Anna's most recent adventures, teaching yoga in Bali and attending retreats, became the focal point of all conversations. I kept telling myself that it didn't matter. Family was family, and they all loved me in their own way. Even last month, when I helped my mother prepare for Thanksgiving, she told everyone that Anna had done all of the work while I merely sat around. I swallowed my hurt, kept my mouth quiet, and tried not to create a scene. But it aches each time. When Anna mentioned that she was hosting Christmas that year, I offered to help with the planning and cooking. She brushed me off, stating she preferred things to be flawless. I should have known something was wrong then, but I was still holding out hope that this time would be different. I tried so hard to conform to their ideal of the perfect family. I worked more, donated more, and excused their conduct, but I never felt like I belonged. I convinced myself that if I just worked more and contributed more of myself, they would eventually regard me as deserving. But on Christmas morning, as I sat alone browsing through Instagram, I discovered something. I was not the problem. I'd been attempting to thrust myself into a family that did not want me, and in that moment I realized I couldn't keep pretending. I glanced at my phone as the knowledge hit me, cold and distinct. I had been the one excluded. I had been lied to, and now I had to decide how to deal with this knowledge. The next morning, my mother's joyful tone felt like a slap in the face. "Hi, honey. Hope you had a nice, quiet Christmas. We missed you." I should have expected it. But hearing her act so normal, unconcerned about what had just transpired, made my blood boil. I knew I needed to remain calm, but I could feel everything inside me bristling with rage. How could she have lied to me like that? How could they all lie? I opened my lips to answer, but my voice got trapped in my throat. I could not find the words. Instead, I let the silence between us last for a time, trying to steady myself. "I saw the photos," I replied, barely above a whisper. There was a prolonged pause on the other end. My mother understood exactly what I was talking about. "Catherine, don't overreact," she urged hastily, as if it were a little annoyance or misunderstanding. "It was just a last-minute thing. Anna wanted everything to be perfect. You know how she is." I wanted to yell at her. I wanted to reassure her that I was not overreacting. I was not simply too quiet or too busy for my family. The falsehood they told me about the ice storm and everyone remaining at home was a deliberate attempt to make me feel like an outcast. What hurt the most was not the exclusion itself, but the fact that my own mother was complicit in it. She was the one who sent the message. I clenched my fists over my phone, trying to keep my voice calm. "You lied to me, Mom. You lied about everything. There was no ice storm. I saw the photos." There was a prolonged, uneasy silence. The weight hung in the air. I could feel her trying to come up with an excuse, but I wasn't about to let her off the hook. Not this time. "Well, Anna organized it at the last minute, and you know how it is with you," she continued, her tone becoming defensive. "You're always so quiet at gatherings. It's uncomfortable. We thought it would be easier for you to just stay home." "Stay home?" My voice broke, and I had to take a big breath. "So, it wasn't enough to just cancel Christmas for everyone else? You had to make me feel like I didn't belong at all?" "No, honey, it's not like that," she muttered, sounding sorry but refusing to confess the truth. "We just didn't want to make things awkward. We were trying to avoid upsetting you." I could feel my chest tighten as my mind raced through the years of minor slights and subtle ways I had been overlooked. It was not just this Christmas, it was the years spent feeling like an alien in my own family, the continual comparisons to Anna, and how my accomplishments were constantly minimized while hers were highlighted. They regarded me like a burden when I assisted them, working extra hours to pay their bills, putting my career on hold to care for Dad after his surgery, while Anna was away living her free life. Everything had been building up for years, and suddenly it was all coming down. "How many times?" I inquired, my voice softer now, the treachery seeping in. "How many family events have I missed because of you? How many holidays and dinners did I think were canceled when they were actually happening without me?" There was a lull, and I could practically hear my mother's mind racing. She did not respond right away. "I don't know what you're talking about," she replied, her voice still strained but unapologetic. "You've always been so busy with work and other things. We didn't want to bother you." "Bother me," I repeated, unable to control the bitter laugh that escaped my lips. "You've been deliberately excluding me. You've been lying to me. And now you want me to believe that it was all for my own good?" Her voice lowered and I could hear her sigh from the other end of the line. "Catherine, you're just being overly sensitive. We love you. You know that." But I did not feel loved. I felt like an afterthought. And that was the issue. They did not love me. Not in the way that I needed. They liked the notion of me, the version that was easier to manipulate. The daughter who kept quiet, worked hard, and didn't create a fuss. But what about the real me? Who took care of them while they were in need? She did not fit within their ideal family photo. "Do you love me, Mom?" I said, my voice breaking. "Or do you just love the idea of me being the quiet, obedient daughter who never asks questions?" "That's not fair," she remarked, her voice rising. "You're always making things so complicated. We just wanted a peaceful Christmas, and now you're turning it into this big thing." "No, Mom," I murmured, shaking my head, even though she couldn't see me. "You turned it into a big thing. You and Dad. And Anna. I've spent my whole life trying to fit into your perfect family, but I'm done. I'm done pretending." For the first time in my life, I made no apologies. I did not accept the guilt. I did not try to make things right for them. I simply hung up the phone and sat down, staring at the screen, feeling a sensation of serenity flood over me. It wasn't really a relief. It seemed more like the weight of the truth had settled on my shoulders. I realized I'd been living a lie for years. The truth was that I was not the problem. I'd never been. I was not the problem. My family was. The deception they told me about Christmas was the last straw. The moment when years of manipulation, negligence, and deception all came tumbling down. I had always tried so hard to win their favor, to be the daughter they desired, but now I've seen it. Nothing I did was ever enough, and perhaps it was time to cease trying. The day after that phone call with my mother, the weight of everything hit me like a freight train. I sat in my flat, staring blankly at my phone, trying to figure out where to go next. My family had been lying to me for years, methodically excluding me and making me feel like I didn't belong, and this Christmas lie was the tipping point. However, it was no longer just about the deception. It was about all that had happened prior to it. I remembered all the times I had been the dutiful daughter, never complaining and never asking for much. I'd spent years attempting to get their approval, working harder than anybody else. My parents told me that accounting was the practical choice, so I gave up my desire of attending art school. My sister Anna, on the other hand, did what she wanted. She dropped out of college to become a yoga instructor, and my parents honored her free spirit by calling her bold. The discrepancy between us had always been obvious, but I convinced myself it didn't matter. Family was family, after all. They loved me in their own way, right? But suddenly I could see it all. I'd spent my entire life being treated as if I were invisible, as if I wasn't enough. I kept convincing myself that it was my fault because I wasn't as extroverted or fun as Anna, but deep down, I knew that wasn't real. My family couldn't accept the fact that I was different. They had always favored her and complimented her for her exploits, but I toiled behind the scenes to ensure everything ran properly. But where is my praise? Where was the recognition of my sacrifice? The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. I could no longer avoid the truth. They hadn't just banned me from Christmas dinner. They'd been gradually removing me from their lives for years. And what stung the most was that they didn't appear to care. They desired a beautiful family image, and as long as I met that description, I was accepted. But once I stopped following their rules, I became nothing more than a problem. I didn't want to be angry any longer, but I couldn't stop it. The reality was too difficult to ignore. My entire life, I had lived in the shadow of this wonderful family narrative, and now I realized it was all a lie. They'd picked Anna. They'd always chosen Anna. And I was the only one who got left behind. I had to do something. I couldn't just sit back and let them play their game. But what could I do? I wasn't the type of person who made a scene or created drama. I had always kept my feelings to myself, swallowed my hurt, and remained silent. But this was different. This time, I was not going to let them trick me into thinking I was the problem. I was done being the family doormat. So I did what I know best. I started gathering evidence. I began digging through old photos, family texts, and social media postings, looking for evidence that they had been lying to me all along. And as I searched, I found that my instincts were correct. The proof was everywhere. They had been excluding me from family occasions, claiming they were canceled when they were not. They had been making excuses, concealing the facts, and appearing to be a family while manipulating me. I felt nauseous when scrolling through their posts. They were all smiling, laughing, and enjoying themselves, but I was left alone. And it wasn't limited to this year. It happens every year. Every holiday and family function, they either explicitly omitted me or made up lies to conceal their tracks. How hadn't I seen that before? I felt a mixture of surprise and rage as I realized how much time I had wasted, how much I had sacrificed for individuals who did not value me. I had done everything I could to help them, to be a good daughter, sister, and family member. It was all for nothing. It was not enough. It was not enough. I knew I needed to address them, but I wasn't going to do it how they expected. I wasn't going to grovel for their acceptance or apologize for not being the daughter they expected. No, this time I was determined to make sure they knew the truth, and I intended to do it on my own terms. That night, I got on my computer and began writing an email to my entire family. It was time to quit pretending. It's time to stop pretending that everything was fine. Subject: the truth about Christmas. To everyone. I've seen images of Christmas supper. I was told the dinner had been canceled due to an ice storm. I want you all to understand exactly what you've done. You did not simply exclude me from a family gathering. You planned an elaborate falsehood to force me to spend Christmas alone. I've supplied screenshots of texts and social media photographs to demonstrate the truth. You've been lying to me for years about canceled events, family dinners, and your so-called spontaneous gatherings that I had no idea about. I can't keep quiet anymore. I understand what you've been doing. I know what you have been hiding from me. I deserve better than this. I deserve to be treated with the same love and respect as you showed to Anna. And I'm not going to stand for it anymore. I'm finished pretending. I stared at the email for a time, my heart racing. I knew it would affect everything, but I didn't care anymore. I'd been treading on eggshells for far too long. This was my truth, and I was not scared to express it. With one more glance at the screen, I pressed submit. The responses arrived almost instantly. My Aunt Marie was the first to respond, saying they had just forgotten to inform me that the plans had altered. Uncle Robert thought I was overreacting, while Na, my cousin, promptly removed all of the Christmas images and messaged me, telling me I was generating unnecessary drama. But Anna's remark stung the most. She sent me a long, condescending email, lecturing me on how I never put an effort at family gatherings, and how I was always so serious and detached. She even had the arrogance to say that excluding me was for my own benefit because I clearly did not enjoy family gatherings. Next came my parents. Their response was just what I had imagined. Rather than apologize, they went on the offensive. My mother began calling mutual family acquaintances, telling them I was suffering a breakdown. My father sent me a scathing email about respecting family privacy and how airing dirty laundry was wrong. I felt as though I was losing my mind. They had lied to me for years, and now they were attempting to flip things around on me. I was not the problem. I'd never been the problem. They were. Even as they attempted to skew the story, I knew one thing for certain. I was not going to back down. Not this time. Not anymore. I'd finally quit being the family's doormat, and I wasn't about to let them get away with it. After writing the email, I experienced an unusual sense of tranquility. For the first time in my life, I wasn't silently swallowing my pain. I had finally stated what needed to be said. The replies that followed, while predictable, nonetheless left me reeling. I understood that revealing their lies meant upending everything. Every lie, every fabricated story they had told about me, but something inside me felt I needed to do it. The truth needed to be revealed, no matter how ugly or terrible it was for them. The family did not spend time manipulating the narrative to their advantage. Aunt Marie's first response was a lame explanation, stating they just forgot to inform me of the change in plans. My cousin Na, the person whose social media post had broken my heart, removed all of the photographs and messaged me privately, telling me I was causing drama and should just let it go. But it was Anna's remark that really struck me. Her email was full of that usual condescending tone that she always used to make me feel rigid and serious. She implied that excluding me was for my own benefit because I obviously didn't enjoy family gatherings. It hurt. She'd always been the golden child, the one who couldn't do anything wrong. Her dismissal of me as the problem was the ultimate insult. But the most upsetting aspect was my parents' reaction. Instead of apologizing or owning their mistakes, they immediately moved into damage control mode. My mother began calling mutual family friends, portraying me as an unstable individual who couldn't handle family relationships. My father emailed me about respecting family privacy and how spreading our dirty laundry was inappropriate. It was the same script, just with a new line. They had spent my entire childhood molding me into the obedient daughter who remained silent, kept her head down, and never asked for anything. The more I defended myself, the more they attempted to undermine me. But this time I was not backing down. This time I was not going to apologize for being unhappy. I was not going to let them change my reality. Phone calls and emails from family members began to pour in. Some were sympathetic, but the majority were defensive. My father, in his usual harsh manner, even threatened to cut me out of his will. I nearly laughed when I noticed the text. What were his thoughts? Was I going to beg him for a few more shreds of their approval? It didn't bother me anymore, but then I received something unexpected, an email from Rachel. She was an old family acquaintance who had handled my parents' finances for many years. I hadn't known her very well, but I remembered her as kind and professional. She was no longer active, yet I felt compelled to contact her. When I met her in a quiet cafe downtown, she appeared apprehensive, carrying a manila package. She slid it across the table toward me, her hands trembling. "I've been carrying the guilt of this for years," she admitted gently. "Your father swore me to secrecy, but after seeing how they've been treating you, I can't stay quiet anymore." I was surprised to see documents inside the packet, including bank statements and legal papers. As I read through them, I felt as if the ground was crumbling beneath me. My grandfather had left a substantial bequest for my studies, totaling about $300,000. I had no idea about this money. But here's the truth. My father had utilized his position as trustee to move all of that money to Anna's accounts. The cash that were supposed to go toward my future had been diverted into Anna's business activities. She had been living on my inheritance for years as I worked to pay off student loans and cover household expenditures. There was more. My parents had utilized my power of attorney, which I signed when I was 18, to sell the assets that my grandfather had left for me and Anna. They had taken it all for themselves, funneling money into Anna's yoga retreats, her studio in Bali, and her adventures. Meanwhile, they chastised me for working hard in my accounting profession, calling it uninteresting, while complimenting Anna for her free spirit. I couldn't breathe while reading through it all. My family had stolen from me, and whatever they hadn't taken, they had buried beneath lies and deception. Rachel noticed my disbelief and reached across the table, her voice firm yet somber. "Catherine, this is morally wrong. It is illegal. Your father and mother have been stealing from you for years. They utilized your name, signature, and trust to rob you." I glanced at the documents, a cold rage rising within me. All of my years of working extra hours and making sacrifices to pay for my degree had been in vain. They had been using me, using my trust. And now they had the arrogance to try to blame everything on me after I finally spoke up for myself. Rachel went on, "I realize this is a lot to take in, But you need to understand that what they've done to you isn't simply betrayal, it is a crime, and I'm willing to help you. I can't alter the past, but we can stop this now." I sat there, feeling numb but more clear-headed than I have in years. They had taken everything from me, not only my inheritance but also my feeling of self-worth and family. It was time to take it back. I stared at Rachel with shaky palms but a calm voice. "Thank you. I know exactly what I have to do now. I had the proof, I had the documentation, and I was prepared to take action. The reality had out, and it wasn't just about Christmas anymore. It was about reclaiming what they'd stolen away from me, including my dignity, future, and independence." With Rachel's paperwork in hand, I knew what needed to be done. I couldn't let it go, not after what they'd put me through. I wasn't simply angry anymore, I was empowered. As an accountant, I was particularly suited to track down their lies, and now I had the proof to show them for what they were. I spent the next week looking over every detail to piece together the money trail they had left behind, each unlawful transfer, each bogus paper. I knew exactly how to track the money, and it all pointed to the same conclusion. They had stolen from me for years and gotten away with it because I had been too silent, too willing to believe their justifications. No more. I did not want to simply let them off the hook. I wasn't asking for an apology anymore. I demanded responsibility. I recruited Sarah Chen, a lawyer who specializes in estate fraud, to review the paperwork. After analyzing everything, she verified what I previously suspected. It was a clear instance of financial exploitation, and if I chose to pursue it, I could file criminal charges. The thought of bringing a criminal case worried me. It would ruin my family's reputation. But then I realized they'd already ruined our connection. They had already made their decision when they excluded me from family occasions, lied to my face, and stole from me. I couldn't defend them anymore, so I sent one final email to my folks and Anna. I requested a family meeting as a chance to discuss our disagreements. I wasn't expecting much, probably more manipulation, but I needed to meet them face to face. I needed them to know I wasn't backing down. They agreed swiftly, perhaps hoping to calm me down and make me feel guilty enough to apologize. Little did they know, I had a plan. The morning of the meeting, I set up 3 files on my dining table, one for each of them. Inside, there was a detailed record of their scam, as well as a letter from my lawyer describing their choices. They had 2 options: return what they'd taken from me and sign a confession, or face criminal prosecution. They went in with tight smiles and protective body language. My mother immediately began raving about how relieved she was that I had come to my senses. But I interrupted her. Before anyone could respond, I passed the folders over the table to them. Their expressions transformed in an instant. My father's face drained of color as he began perusing the paperwork. Anna's hands were clearly shaking. "You need to read these," I said, my voice firm. My mother was the first to speak, but she didn't apologize. "This is ridiculous. You are attempting to blackmail your own family." "Blackmail?" I laughed coldly. "No, I'm offering you a choice. Repay my inheritance with interest and admit what you did, or I'll let the cops handle it. Rachel is already ready to testify." My father attempted to say, "This is a family issue. You don't have to make it public." "No," I responded. "You have stolen from me for years and now you want to hide it? You no longer get to decide how this ends." Anna, who had remained mute until now, finally spoke. Her voice quivered as she attempted to justify herself. "I did not know. They informed me the money came from their savings." "Don't lie," I said back. "The transfers were deposited directly into your accounts. You knew exactly what you were doing." My mother tried a different method, which I had seen 1,000 times before. "Think about how this will affect the family. What will the people say?" I did not flinch. "You should have thought about that before you stole hundreds of thousands of dollars from your own daughter." I could feel the tension in the air increasing. My father clenched his jaw, and Anna's eyes welled up with phony tears. But I wasn't buying anymore. "You have 48 hours to decide," I told you. "Either you return everything and sign the confession, or I will go to the police. I'll make sure everyone knows the truth." They left in a huff, my mother's cries ringing down the corridor. I didn't feel satisfied. There was no satisfaction in seeing them squirm, only relief that I had finally spoken out for myself, that I was not going to allow them to gaslight me into silence again. As soon as they left, the family group chat exploded with messages from relatives, many of whom defended my parents and Anna. It was the same song and dance I'd heard all my life. My family was the golden kid, and I was the issue. But this time, I didn't feel the urge to respond. I'd already won. I had the truth on my side. That evening, I called Sarah and spoke calmly but firmly. They will not do the right thing. I can feel it. She hesitated and continued. Get everything ready. We'll file charges once the 48-hour period is up. The deadline approached, and I knew what was coming. I'd already made peace with it. Whatever they chose to do, the truth was out there, and nothing could change it. They could no longer manipulate me, and that was the most strong emotion in the world. The 48-hour deadline has come and gone. As expected, my family did not use the opportunity to put things right. Instead, they prioritized ego over accountability. They didn't sign the confession or refund the money. Instead, they attempted to destroy the evidence. Accounts were closed, records shredded, and Rachel was even pressured to withdraw her story. They thought they could make everything disappear. They were unaware that I had previously reported everything to the authorities. The morning after the deadline, I filed criminal charges against them. By the afternoon, the police had arrived at their home with search warrants. I sat in my office, numb yet strangely peaceful, and watched it all happen. I saw my father being escorted from his office in handcuffs. My phone vibrates with notifications, but I did not check them. I was too concentrated on what was happening. Anna's yoga studio, which she had established using my stolen inheritance, was seized as an asset. I envisioned her sitting there, attempting to explain things away like she always did. My mother, too, was arrested, at one of her charity committee meetings, no less. They were all wearing masks of artificial beauty, yet everything was crumbling. The family group chat erupted again. This time around, the tone was different. No more messages of compassion for my parents. No longer reject me as exaggerated. Suddenly, everyone went silent. Relatives who had previously rallied around my parents' phony narrative were now silent, unable to ignore the truth any longer. The story was in the papers, and there was no getting around it. As I watched everything unfold, I didn't get the feeling of success I was expecting. There was no joy in witnessing their kingdom of falsehoods crumble. Only relief. Finally, the truth had been revealed, and I was free from their manipulation. I was relieved of the burden of pretending I didn't know what they had done to me. Days later, Rachel texted me, "You did the right thing. Your grandfather would be proud of you." I couldn't help smiling. She was correct. This was not about vengeance. It was not about taking them down. It was about justice. My grandfather gave me that inheritance for a reason. He knew they would try to take it away. In the end, it wasn't the money that counted. It took bravery to stand up for oneself. A year has gone. The court battles were over, and both my mother and father had accepted plea deals. They were compelled to make reparations, but I knew it would never entirely compensate for what they had taken from me. Anna's yoga empire failed, and she was forced to obtain a real job. The idyllic family they had always exhibited was no more, and with it, their hold on me. I moved to Denver. The snow falling outside my window felt like a sign of the new beginning I was giving myself. I was free from their demands, from the lies, and, most importantly, from the toxic environment in which I had spent my whole life attempting to please. The following week, Rachel came to see me. She brought an old photo album that she found while cleaning out her workplace. Inside were photos of my granddad and me. In one photo, we were fishing together and joking about something I couldn't recall. His expression was full with warmth and pride. Rachel sat across from me while I looked at the picture. "He always said you were the strong one," she had told me. "He knew they favored Anna, but he believed you would overcome it." I blinked away tears. He had tried to protect me in his own way, and I hadn't realized it. Not only was the bequest his ultimate present to me, but it also provided a means of escape from their manipulation. It had taken years, but I had finally received it. The courage to be free. As I held the photograph, I recognized the reality. The greatest revenge I could ever have was not to take them down or seek retribution. It was about sticking up for myself and gathering the courage to let go of the lies. I want to live my life on my terms. The finest revenge isn't always about getting even. It's about becoming free.